Welcome back to Spork Syndicate. My name is Tom. Let's have a little fun. Today we're going to take this Matchbox 1970 Honda N600 off-road and give it some tires more able to handle off-road conditions and age it appropriately but tastefully. The goal is to transform a mainline die-cast car off the peg into a gem in your collection in just 1 or 2 sittings. I've already drilled and tapped the posts. Pretty standard fare. A nice metal body with headlight and grille tampos, but nothing for the fog lights or tail lights. We'll fix that. Nice new glass, fresh out of the blister. A single seat interior, which I'm not going to touch. And a base where most of my work will occur. I found these off-rubber road tires. They might be Greenlight because of their thick axles. First up, I sand the shininess and some of the tread off the tires. I don't want them looking too nice because this little guy's gonna show his age. Since I know I'm going to use axle tubes, I can just snip the tabs off. A quick test fit reveals I need to bore out the trench to fit the new axle. And since the axles rotate with the wheels, we're definitely going to need those axle tubes. I just need to find the right size. A while back, I got the measurements of M2, Greenlight, and other non-Mattel die-cast axles and found the corresponding diameter copper tubes. Measure, cut, test fit. Ooh, long way to go. Since my round file is very close in size with the axle tube, I use it as a guide to expand the space needed. It's important to check your filing level, so you'll see me test fit quite a bit here. Some test fits with longer tubes didn't make the final edit. The goal is to make sure the axle is seated flush, otherwise you're going to have one tire jammed up into the fender and the other just dangling. For road clearance, I also clip the suspension pieces and file them down. I filed the rear axle's fitting too deep, so I use a thin piece of styrene plastic to act as a spacer to even the front and the rear. A final dry fit, and there's fender clearance, road clearance, and things look pretty even front to back. On to detailing. First up, I tape off and use paint markers and a Sharpie to paint the gas cap, the tail lights, and the fog lights on the roof. It's kind of a crapshoot with mainlines. Those die-cast cars you get for about $1, they might not have any detail tampos, or they'll have rears but not fronts, and vice versa. With this Matchbox casting, there's a really great rally livery, as well as headlights and a grille, but the hood, roof, and hatchback have no detail whatsoever. In addition to the casting, I add some color to the front brush bumper, which is part of the base. Off with the tape, and now we have more detail. and a little bit of rust and weathering, which is about to turn into a lot of rust and weathering. My Dremel 300 grit sanding pads really help weather something. They can burnish light colors like the white base coat and knock down a bit of the vibrancy of the color scheme. Now the first and deepest bits of rust. At first, I'm trying to be gentle, but I want large scabs of rust. The story I've written in my mind for this Honda is that it's owned by someone with a farm who loves rally racing and races around their acres quite often, and sometimes uses the thing as his daily car. It's what they drive when they don't need a pickup truck to haul things around. The next step in weathering is makeup. I got this at a dollar store and, as I've said before in builds like these, I like the texture it brings to the finished product. The powdery makeup often mixes with the paint and black wash and adheres to the casting. Now I'm dotting on lighter rust colors, more orange than brown, with a toothpick. This also creates texture and shows places where rust might just be showing through the paint, as opposed to corroding holes in the body. For the grille between the hood and the windshield, I go with black. I imagine the part is different metal or plastic and aged differently than the parts around it. Also, I could imagine the original motor for this car blue and the black is just charring from said explosion. Now I'm using a clean, dry Q-tip to back off the weathering. We're getting into bottom of the lake territory here. For the brush bumper fog lamps, I add black wash to the brown, mostly because the yellow and brown were mixing and I wanted the lights to stand out. Rather than gouge or dent the bumpers, I just grime them up, add some rust and let them be. The tires and rims get the lighter browns and tans to look more dirt than rust to finish the look. lovely mess we've made. Off camera, I dusted the windows as well. Everything fits back together and screws take the place of the rivets. We swapped out the wheels, gave the Honda a little more ground clearance, and went to town on the body. First, we painted the taillights and fog lights on the roof and front brush bumper, and then we weathered everything to look equally rusty and muddy. All in all, it was a fun time at the workbench, and this is how I imagine this car should really look. It's all about the details creating an overall look. I think we achieved the right amount of weathering for a 50-plus-year-old car. It's what's under the hood that counts, and I imagine this little sporty thing gets new spark plugs on the regular and has regular oil changes, and probably gets a little lead additive and octane booster on the weekends. For Spork Syndicate, this is Tom. Let's do this again real soon.